As I stood on my front porch, the early morning light cast a gentle glow on the decorative shadow box that I had so meticulously crafted. Inside, my late father's military medals sparkled like hidden treasures, each one a testament to his extraordinary service as a four-star general. Beside them lay the finely folded flag, its rich colors a vivid reminder of profound sacrifices made in the name of freedom. This was not just a display to me. It was a tribute, a beacon of pride, and a dialogue between the past and present. Each time I glanced at the box, memories flooded back, tales of courage shared during family gatherings, the resonance of his laughter, and the lessons he instilled in me about honor and duty. I poured my heart into this creation, wanting to celebrate his legacy while also inspiring neighbors to recognize and remember the heroes among us. The shadow box was positioned prominently, a statement piece that spoke to my father's life and the values he held dear. It felt right to honor him publicly. It was with shock and disbelief that I later received a letter from the Homeowners Association. Their casual dismissal of my pride, labeling my carefully curated display as unsightly and not conforming to community decorum, felt like an affront to everything my father stood for. They didn't realize that for my family, especially in our community where such legacies should be celebrated, this display served a vital purpose. Instead of cowering under their threats of fines for noncompliance, I felt resolve hardening within me. I knew I had connections within military circles, veteran organizations, and even high-ranking officials who recognized the significance of such tributes. I wasn't just displaying medals, I was sharing a legacy formed through years of dedication and service. Little did the HOA know, this conflict would soon ignite passions far beyond my front porch, a fight not just for myself but for all families honoring their loved ones in service to this country. Days after placing the shadow box on my porch, I found myself staring at an official-looking envelope that had been slipped under my door. The moment I unfolded it, a wave of disbelief washed over me. It was from the Homeowners Association, and as I read their words, a mix of anger and confusion bubbled to the surface. They claimed my display was unsightly and distracting, a violation of their community decorum guidelines. I felt my heart sink. How could they not see the honor in what I created? The letter went on to demand that I remove the display immediately or face daily fines. Daily fines. The thought of potentially being penalized for honoring my father felt like an injustice too severe to bear. Each word in that letter seemed to diminish not only my father's legacy, but also the values of respect and remembrance I held dear. It felt like an assault on our family's history at a time when we needed healing and pride. In disbelief, I reread the letter, searching for any hint of misunderstanding or explanation. Did they truly believe that showcasing military service was something to be ashamed of? As I processed this shocking directive, I felt anger rising within me, igniting a determination that I hadn't realized was simmering beneath the surface. Instead of being intimidated, I decided it was crucial to respond thoughtfully yet firmly. This was not just about my display, it was about standing up for veterans everywhere who had sacrificed so much. Little did the HOA know that I had connections with influential military leaders and veteran organizations ready to rally behind this cause. Their attempt to silence my tribute would soon awaken support far beyond my porch, a movement reflecting pride in service rather than shame in display. As I drafted my response, my resolve solidified. I couldn't allow this fight to end here. My father taught me the importance of standing up for what is right, and now it was time to embody that lesson fully. As the stinging words of the HOA letter echoed in my mind, I felt a deep ache in my chest. How could anyone dismiss the memory of my father, a four-star general who dedicated his life to serving this country, as merely distracting? Each medal in that shadow box held a story of bravery, sacrifice, and resilience. They weren't just glimmers of metal, they represented lives saved, missions accomplished, and the spirit of countless veterans who had fought for freedom. The more I thought about their demand, the more my anger transformed into a sense of betrayal. This display was not just a personal tribute, it was a reminder for our community to honor the sacrifices made by those who served. With every glance at the flag and medals, I felt my father's presence and everything he instilled in me, values of respect, duty, and pride. The HOA's complete disregard for that history felt like an attack on my family's values. I recalled the moments spent with him, listening to stories from his military days, tales that taught me about courage and service. To have that legacy reduced to terms that implied shame was heartbreaking. It wasn't just about losing my right to display his achievements. It was about losing a piece of my identity and honoring him appropriately within our community. In that moment of reflection, I started to visualize the conversations I would have with my neighbors about this. Many would understand the significance of the display. After all, our neighborhood was home to families who had walked similar paths. The HOA might see my father's medals as merely decorative clutter, but I knew that countless others would recognize it as a vital link to our shared history. Instead of succumbing to frustration or despair, a fire ignited within me. I resolved to make my voice heard, not just for myself but for all veterans and their families who deserved recognition. This fight was bigger than me. It called upon me to stand resolutely, ensuring that legacies like my father's would not be silenced or forgotten in the face of bureaucracy. With my heart racing and determination solidifying within me, I decided to take a bold step. Fueled by the outrage boiling inside, I crafted a heartfelt post on social media outlining the HOA's demands and explaining the significance of my father's Shadowbox tribute. I shared not only the letter but also the backstory behind each medal and the folded flag, detailing my father's incredible journey as a four-star general. This was more than just a display. It was a testament to sacrifice and service that deserved respect. As I hit post, I felt a surge of hope. Little did I know that simple act would ignite a firestorm of support. Within hours, my post began to circulate like wildfire, shared and reshared by friends, family, and strangers alike. Veterans groups and active duty soldiers soon took notice, expressing their solidarity in the comments section. Many shared their own stories of service and sacrifice, echoing my sentiment that honoring our military heroes should never be viewed as unsightly. Messages of encouragement flooded in. Civilians who understood the importance of honoring our veterans chimed in, condemning the HOA's demands and vowing to stand with me. The hashtags began to proliferate, #HonorOurVeterans, Respect Service, with people rallying across social media platforms to amplify our cause. Local news organizations caught wind of the unfolding story, reaching out for interviews and coverage. As reporters spoke to me about my father's legacy and the irony of being penalized for such a display, I realized that this incident was not isolated. It resonated with countless others who had faced similar ignorance or disrespect regarding military honors. The HOA was suddenly thrust into the public eye, facing mounting backlash from not just our community, but from across the nation. Calls and emails flooded their offices from military families and supporters demanding that they reconsider their stance. This was no longer just my fight. It was a collective movement rooted in respect for those who had served, ensuring that the memory of our heroes would not be silenced by bureaucratic indifference. The power of community had come alive, and together we were shaping a narrative that sought justice for all veterans and their families. As the outrage continued to spread across social media, it wasn't long before local news outlets began picking up the story. What started as a personal struggle quickly evolved into a larger narrative that resonated with many across the nation. Reporters were eager to explore the conflict between individual expression and community governance, particularly in the sensitive context of honoring military service. News crews arrived at my home, cameras rolling as they captured my emotional tale of how the HOA's demands affected not only my life, but also the memories of my father and countless other veterans. Interviews aired showcasing passionate commentary from veterans groups, civilians moved by the story, and even military families who understood firsthand the importance of recognizing those who have served. Each segment seemed to amplify our cause, bringing more voices into the dialogue. The hashtags that originated from my social media post, #HonorOurVeterans and Respect Service, became rallying points for others. Tweets, Facebook posts, and Instagram stories flooded in from supportive allies sharing their own tributes to family members lost in service or discussing the significance of recognizing military heritage. The sentiment was clear. This wasn't just about one display. It represented a broader issue regarding respect for our military community. Public discussions erupted on various platforms, illustrating a global network of individuals aligned in solidarity. Comment sections filled with heartfelt messages echoed a unified demand for understanding and appreciation of military service rather than disdainful dismissal. It became increasingly evident that people wanted to stand against what many perceived as an unjust affront to service members' sacrifices. As support grew exponentially, local veteran organizations mobilized to endorse my cause further. Advocacy groups reached out not only to lend their voices, but also to strategize next steps. Plans were made for peaceful demonstrations and public gatherings where community members could share their stories. What had begun as a personal grievance morphed into a movement with undeniable momentum. Public awareness surged alongside growing sympathy for veterans and their families across media platforms, forcing the HOA into the spotlight. This collective wave of outrage was turning heads and gaining traction, effectively rallying cries that demanded respect for anyone who had ever worn a uniform in defense of our freedom. As the outrage blossomed into a nationwide movement, the Homeowners Association soon found itself under siege from a barrage of communications. Veterans, organizations, individuals from our community, and supporters across the country began inundating the HOA with emails, calls, and social media posts demanding justice for the disrespect shown toward my tribute. The HOA's office became overwhelmed, their phone lines jammed with angry constituents expressing their solidarity. Emails flooded in, each one echoing similar sentiments. How could an organization so concerned with community decorum turn a blind eye to honoring military service? People recounted their own stories of loss and pride, sharing narratives that highlighted the importance of recognizing those who served. The hashtags that gained momentum, #HonorOurVeterans and Respect Service, spread rapidly through digital platforms, amplifying our collective voices and solidifying our cause. In response to the mounting pressure, the HOA attempted to downplay the situation, issuing statements that suggested the outrage was exaggerated. However, this only fueled the fire further. Community meetings started filling up with residents eager to voice their opinions about how honor and respect should be upheld in their neighborhood. Supporters of my cause arrived in droves, leveraging their own platforms to highlight what they saw as an affront to both community standards and the sacrifices made by veterans. Local veterans groups organized rallies and peaceful demonstrations to show solidarity, proudly displaying flags and photos of loved ones who had served. The public was captivated. News outlets began reporting on these gatherings, emphasizing the grassroots nature of this movement while showcasing signs that declared support for military recognition. As days passed, the pressure on the HOA escalated dramatically. Their board was forced into damage control mode as they grappled with how to respond effectively without further alienating their community or facing legal ramifications. It became clear that they underestimated not only my resolve, but also the unity and strength that comes when communities stand together in solidarity for a shared cause. What started as a personal battle had transformed into an unstoppable wave of collective action, one that demanded justice for military families and respect for their legacies, ensuring that such sacrifices would never be disregarded again. As the momentum of public support grew, I knew it was time to take decisive action. I reached out to a seasoned veterans' rights attorney whose reputation for standing up against injustices was well known in the community. After explaining my situation and the HOA's demands, I could see the fire ignite in his eyes. He understood the significance of what I was fighting for, not just my father's legacy, but also the rights of all veterans and their families to honor their service. During our consultation, he thoroughly reviewed the HOA's letter and discussed potential legal avenues. It became clear that we had a strong case. The HOA's actions could be interpreted as discrimination against military service and those who wished to commemorate it. Together, we began to outline a strategy that would not only protect my right to display my father's medals and flag, but also challenge the broader implications of the HOA's stance. We explored various legal frameworks that supported veterans' rights, focusing on fair housing laws that prohibit discrimination based on military status. My attorney emphasized the importance of framing this as a fight for dignity and respect, not just for myself, but for every veteran who faced similar challenges. His expertise gave me confidence that we could turn this personal battle into a landmark case. As we prepared to file a discrimination lawsuit against the HOA, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer just an individual defending a tribute. I was part of a larger movement advocating for justice and equality for veterans everywhere. The thought that we could set a precedent to protect military tributes in residential communities fueled my determination. With my attorney by my side, we initiated the legal process, making sure to keep the community informed and engaged throughout. The pressure on the HOA intensified as news of our impending lawsuit spread. This was no longer simply about my shadow box. It was about ensuring that the memories of those who served would be honored and respected within our neighborhoods. Our legal strategy set the stage for a confrontation that I hoped would lead to meaningful change, not just for myself, but for countless others who shared in this struggle. With our legal strategy firmly in place, it was time to make our move. My attorney and I prepared to file a discrimination lawsuit against the HOA, asserting that their demands to remove my tribute not only violated my rights, but also undermined the dignity of military service. We argued that the HOA's actions constituted a potential violation of fair housing practices, which are designed to prevent discrimination based on military status and to uphold the right to honor those who have served. As we drafted the complaint, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. This wasn't just about a shadow box. It was about standing up for the principles that my father fought for. Each paragraph of the lawsuit was infused with the weight of history, memories of family gatherings where my father's stories instilled values of respect and honor flowed through my mind. We were determined to challenge not only the HOA's authority, but also the notion that military tributes could be belittled or dismissed. The lawsuit laid out the facts: my father's distinguished service as a four-star general, the significance of the medals displayed, and how they represented not just personal pride but collective memory for all who have served. We highlighted how the HOA's arbitrary aesthetic rules could not override fundamental rights pertaining to honoring military service. Once filed, news of the lawsuit spread quickly, reigniting local interest in the story. Reporters reached out again, eager to cover this next phase of the battle. As the media spotlight illuminated our legal challenge, I realized how critical it was for others to see that this fight extended beyond my personal narrative. It was emblematic of a broader struggle faced by veterans across the country. Support continued to swell as community members rallied around the cause, urging others to recognize the importance of honoring service. The HOA found itself increasingly isolated, facing not just litigation, but also growing public scrutiny over its actions. It became evident that our legal strategy was more than a defensive maneuver. It was a clarion call for justice on behalf of all military families seeking recognition. As we awaited the HOA's response, I remained resolute in my belief that we could effect meaningful change, not merely for my father's honor, but for all veterans and their families who deserve to celebrate their legacies without fear of reprisal. This lawsuit marked a pivotal moment in our fight, one that could redefine how communities recognize and respect their heroes. As the lawsuit progressed, the momentum behind our cause continued to build at an astonishing pace. Community members, inspired by the unfolding events and the fight for recognition, began to organize their own initiatives in support of veterans' rights. Local businesses displayed signs in their windows proclaiming, "We stand with veterans," while schools held assemblies to discuss the importance of honoring military service. Each small act of solidarity contributed to a growing wave of awareness that swept across our town and beyond. Social media buzzed with activity as more individuals shared their stories about veterans and their families or communities. The hashtags #HonorOurVeterans and Respect Service gained traction, trending locally and becoming rallying cries that further galvanized support. People who had previously remained silent began sharing their experiences, revealing how common it was to encounter similar dismissals of military tributes in other neighborhoods. Veterans organizations were quick to jump on board, mobilizing their networks to amplify our message. They organized peaceful rallies outside the HOA's office, inviting community members to join in solidarity. News cameras captured moments of unity as people gathered with signs, chanting for respect and recognition. The media coverage intensified, and soon our story was featured not just locally but also nationally. This broader attention placed even more pressure on the HOA, which could no longer ignore the growing public sentiment against their actions. Behind the scenes, my attorney and I kept monitoring the situation closely, knowing that each new show of support added weight to our case. We prepared for court proceedings with renewed vigor, fully aware that the implications of our fight extended well beyond my personal tribute. This was shaping up to be a pivotal moment that could influence how communities recognized and honored all military service members. With each passing day, the HOA's public image deteriorated further as they struggled to respond effectively to mounting criticism. Board members who had previously dismissed concerns began facing tough questions from constituents, many of whom now questioned their judgment. It was evident that our movement was shifting perceptions and igniting conversations about dignity and respect for those who served. As we approached the legal showdown, I felt a blend of hope and determination. We were not just fighting for one shadow box, but for a powerful change in how society honored its heroes. As public pressure mounted, chaos began to unfold within the homeowners association. Board members who had previously dismissed the situation as trivial found themselves in an increasingly precarious position. The deluge of angry calls and emails, combined with mounting media scrutiny, created an atmosphere of panic among those responsible for the HOA's decisions. Emergency meetings were held, where the atmosphere was charged with frustration and uncertainty as they confronted the reality of their untenable stance. Members of the board who had vehemently supported the demand to remove my tribute began to feel isolated. Conversations quickly turned to blame. Some pointed fingers at their colleagues for not anticipating the backlash, while others started to express doubt about the aesthetic rules that had seemingly justified their harsh approach. What began as a unilateral decision on their part turned into a heated debate over values, community standards, and respect for military service. As the pressures increased, it became clear that the HOA was caught off guard by the fervor of the public response. Residents who had once remained neutral or passive now felt empowered to voice their discontent, forcing the board to acknowledge the deep-seated resentment brewing against them. Rumors spread that some on the board considered resigning, overwhelmed by guilt and concern for their reputations. Despite attempts to downplay the situation through vague public statements, these efforts did little to quell the outcry. The community began circulating petitions calling for accountability and transparency within the HOA governing body. Some residents rallied outside their office with signs demanding respect for veterans, completely reversing any pretense of community decorum that the board had sought to enforce. Meanwhile, local news stories highlighted the disarray within the HOA, showcasing how an organization designed for neighborhood stability was crumbling under scrutiny. They struggled to communicate effectively, further exposing their inability to manage their role in fostering community spirit. This chaotic environment set the stage for our legal proceedings. The lawsuit seemed poised not just to challenge the removal of my display, but to shine a light on an organization that had lost sight of its purpose, supporting and uniting its community. My resolve only strengthened. I knew that winning this battle would not only honor my father's legacy, but also send a vital message about recognizing and respecting those who serve our country. The HOA's breaking point was just around the corner, and with every passing moment, our movement gathered steam towards a monumental showdown. The day of the court ruling arrived, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Community members gathered outside the courthouse, holding signs that read "Honor our veterans" and "Respect military service." The solidarity felt palpable as veterans and supporters joined forces, united in hope and determination. This wasn't just about my case, it was a testament to the collective struggle for recognition and respect. As I entered the courtroom with my attorney, I could feel the weight of history on my shoulders. The judge listened intently as we presented our arguments, highlighting the significance of military tributes in residential displays and the need for communities to honor their heroes. We cited legal precedents and stressed that the HOA's demand not only violated rights, but also undermined the dignity of those who served our country. After what felt like an eternity, the judge returned with a ruling that echoed through the courtroom. The court ruled in favor of allowing military tributes in residential displays. A wave of relief washed over me as I grasped the enormity of this victory, not just for myself, but for the entire veteran community. Cheers erupted outside as supporters celebrated the decision, their voices a chorus of triumph. This ruling marked a significant turning point. It established a precedent that would empower other veterans and families to honor their loved ones without fear of retribution from governing bodies like HOAs. The impact of this legal victory rippled through our community and beyond, signaling a shift in how military service would be recognized and respected nationwide. In the days that followed, I received messages from veterans organizations across the country congratulating us on our win and expressing gratitude for standing up for their rights. My home transformed into a permanent tribute to my father's legacy, adorned not only with his medals and flag, but also with newfound meaning. The HOA, now forced to reckon with its actions, faced immense public scrutiny. Many board members who had previously supported the demand began to resign under pressure from constituents. The organization that once sought to enforce conformity now found itself grappling with its failure to uphold community values. This victory became more than a personal achievement. It embodied a movement that advocated for justice, dignity, and respect for all who have served. With each passing day, it became clearer that we were creating a legacy that would inspire future generations to honor their heroes freely and proudly. In the wake of the court ruling, the fallout for the Homeowners Association was swift and severe. The board members who had supported the demand to remove my military tribute were now facing a storm of public outrage and scrutiny. Just days after the verdict, several board members announced their resignations, unable to withstand the pressure from constituents who were demanding accountability for their actions. The atmosphere within the HOA had shifted dramatically. What was once an unwavering authority now felt fragmented and uncertain. The community, emboldened by our victory, rallied together in a series of public meetings. Many residents took to the microphone to express their frustration over the HOA's failure to represent community values. Former supporters of the board began questioning its decisions and leadership, openly criticizing how they had handled my case. It became apparent that trust in the HOA had eroded, with many feeling betrayed by its lack of respect for military service and its members' sentiments. Meanwhile, local media outlets continued to cover the ripple effects of the court's ruling, highlighting how a small resistance against an unjust HOA demand had sparked a widespread movement advocating for veterans' rights. As stories emerged of other residents who had faced similar challenges regarding military tributes, it became clear that our struggle was part of a larger narrative about honor and dignity in communities across the nation. As some board members resigned in disgrace, others remained in denial, attempting to appease public sentiment with vague promises of reform without addressing the root causes behind their initial decision. This disarray only fueled further backlash as residents demanded specific changes to HOA policies regarding veterans' displays, aiming not just for compliance, but for meaningful recognition. With several board positions left vacant and overall morale dwindling, it seemed inevitable that structural changes would have to occur within the HOA if it hoped to regain any semblance of credibility. For me, this moment signified more than just a personal triumph. It represented a critical turning point for veterans everywhere. Our legal victory not only protected my father's legacy, but also called into question how communities honor and validate those who serve. As I transformed my home into a permanent tribute, the medals gleaming proudly, a sense of hope emerged that future generations would feel empowered to celebrate their heroes without fear of retribution or disrespect. The movement we sparked was alive and growing. Together, we were changing the narrative around military service in our community for good. In the aftermath of the court ruling, my home underwent a profound transformation. What began as a simple tribute to my late father's service evolved into a permanent shrine honoring veterans and their sacrifices. As I reflected on the overwhelming support from the community and military organizations, I knew I wanted to expand the Shadowbox display into something more significant that would represent all who have served. With the help of various veteran organizations, I organized a community event to unveil the new tribute. Friends, neighbors, veterans, and active duty service members gathered as we transformed my porch into a dedicated space adorned with photographs, flags, and memorabilia from various branches of the military. Each new addition told a story of courage and commitment, celebrating not just my father's legacy, but also those of countless others who had served with honor. Local businesses contributed by donating items for the display, everything from commemorative plaques to banners that expressed gratitude to our heroes. Additionally, some families shared their own stories and artifacts, creating an environment of camaraderie and mutual respect. The sense of unity was palpable as we all came together to celebrate service and sacrifice. As I stood before the completed tribute, surrounded by supporters with tears in their eyes and smiles on their faces, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. This space would serve as a reminder of the importance of remembering our heroes not just on holidays but every single day. It became a place where anyone could come to pay their respects, share their experiences, or simply reflect on the sacrifices made for our freedoms. The media returned to cover this momentous occasion, framing it as a celebration of resilience and community spirit. They highlighted how our collective fight against the HOA had sown the seeds for positive change, demonstrating that standing up for what is right could lead to meaningful progress. This transformation of my home reinforced the notion that honoring military service is not merely a personal endeavor, it is a communal responsibility. Together, we had created a legacy that would inspire future generations to cherish and recognize the contributions of all veterans. With steadfast support from my community and military organizations behind me, I knew that this tribute represented something larger than myself. It was a beacon for justice and respect, brightening the path forward for those who have worn the uniform. Reflecting on this incredible journey, I am filled with a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. What began as a personal struggle to honor my father's legacy transformed into a powerful movement that united our community in support of veterans everywhere. Each step along the way reinforced the importance of standing up for what is right, especially when it comes to recognizing the sacrifices made by those who serve our country. The overwhelming response from community members, local businesses, and veterans organizations demonstrated that the values of honor and respect resonate deeply within us all. We came together not just to defend a tribute, but to challenge a mindset that undervalued military service. In doing so, we ignited conversations about dignity and recognition that had previously gone unaddressed. Through this experience, I learned that true strength lies in unity. The support we garnered was not merely a response to one individual's fight. It became a collective declaration that honoring our heroes is essential for the health of our community. The transformation of my home into a shrine for all veterans symbolizes more than just my father's achievements. It reflects our shared commitment to preserving their legacies. As I look at the expanded tribute now adorned with flags, photographs, and memorabilia from various branches of service, I feel an immense pride. This space serves as a reminder for future generations about the importance of honoring those who have sacrificed for our freedoms. It stands as a beacon of hope, a place where families can come together to remember and celebrate their loved ones who served. Moreover, I realize that this journey is far from over. The momentum we created has inspired many others. It is crucial to continue advocating for veterans' rights and ensuring their contributions are recognized and celebrated in every community across the nation. Ultimately, my father's legacy is woven into this ongoing narrative, a testament to resilience, courage, and love for one's country. As we honor him through this tribute, we also reaffirm our dedication to supporting all veterans, ensuring that they are never forgotten or disrespected again. Together, we are reshaping how we view military service in our society, transforming it into an enduring legacy that will inspire countless generations to come.